Jacksonville, Florida. A city known for its sunshine, its beaches, and unfortunately, a heartbreaking case that shook the nation. This is Cristian Fernandez. At an age when most boys are worried about video games and homework, Cristian found himself facing a charge no child should ever have to: murder. His victim, his own 2-year-old brother David, a tragedy that no family should endure. But as we'll uncover, this story is far more complex than headlines might suggest. It's a story of a life marred by violence, neglect, and missed opportunities. A story that asks us to confront uncomfortable truths about our systems and the way we protect our most vulnerable. This isn't just a story about a crime. It's about the devastating consequences of a system that failed Cristian, his family, and ultimately little David. A system that, perhaps, even created the very circumstances that led to this devastating loss. Over the next hour, we'll unravel the events that led to this unimaginable tragedy. We'll hear from experts, examine the evidence, and confront the difficult questions that this case raises. But most importantly, we'll attempt to understand how a 12-year-old boy could become entangled in such a horrific situation. To understand Cristian's story, we must first understand his mother's. Biannela's life was marked by hardship from the very beginning. Growing up in the challenging neighborhoods of Jacksonville, Florida, Biannela's own childhood was far from the carefree experience every child deserves. Reports paint a picture of a young girl facing neglect, instability, and even abuse within her own home, a chilling foreshadowing of the difficulties she would face later as a parent herself. At the tender age of 10, Biannela endured a trauma no child should ever experience: sexual assault. A year later, she gave birth to Cristian. Imagine becoming a mother at the same age most girls are playing with dolls, their biggest worries about which game to play or what to wear to school. This devastating event set in motion a cycle of hardship and trauma that would continue to impact Biannela and her children. Studies show a clear link between early parenthood, especially in cases stemming from abuse, and the immense challenges faced in providing a stable and nurturing environment for a child. The weight of such responsibility, coupled with unresolved trauma, can be overwhelming for any young parent. As Cristian grew, there were signs that all was not well within the young boy's world. Reports from school and social services suggest behavioral issues, difficulty focusing, and outbursts of anger. There may have even been early contact with Child Protective Services, though the details remain unclear. But were these red flags truly recognized by those in a position to help, or were they tragically overlooked, missed opportunities to intervene in a family that so desperately needed support and guidance? Cristian's young life was already marked by instability, hardship, and a lack of the nurturing environment every child needs to thrive. But the challenges he faced were far from over. In fact, the worst was yet to come. Biannela, a young mother still grappling with her own childhood trauma, found herself in a relationship with David Gallariego. On the surface, he may have seemed like a source of stability, a father figure for Cristian. But behind closed doors, the reality was far different. Allegations of abuse soon emerged. Reports indicate that Cristian, and possibly his younger siblings, suffered physical and emotional abuse at the hands of David Gallariego. The details are disturbing, painting a picture of a household filled with fear and violence. Imagine the impact on a child like Cristian, already burdened by his own troubled past, now trapped in an environment where violence and fear were the norm. Experts suggest that exposure to such abuse can have devastating consequences on a child's development, leading to anger, aggression, and difficulty regulating emotions. Then, a shocking turn of events. In 2011, facing a potential arrest for child abuse, David Gallariego took his own life. He committed suicide in the family home, with the children present. The trauma of witnessing such violence, especially at such a young age, is unimaginable. Experts believe that this kind of exposure can deeply scar a child's psyche, leading to feelings of guilt, helplessness, and even a distorted sense of normalcy regarding violence. How did this traumatic event shape Cristian's actions? Could this tragedy have been prevented if the signs of abuse had been recognized and addressed earlier? March 14, 2011. A day that began like any other for Biannela Susana and her young family. But by day's end, their lives would be irrevocably altered. Biannela left for work, leaving 12-year-old Cristian in charge of his younger siblings, including 2-year-old David. It was a responsibility no child should bear, especially one who had already endured so much. What happened next remains shrouded in some mystery. But the tragic outcome is undeniable. Cristian, reportedly angered by David's accidental fall, lashed out in a fit of rage. The injuries inflicted were severe, ultimately proving fatal. David was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. He succumbed to his injuries 2 days later, a young life full of potential tragically cut short. Cristian was taken into custody. What followed was a grueling interrogation, hours of questioning a traumatized 12-year-old boy. The footage raises serious ethical concerns. Was Cristian truly capable of understanding his rights, the gravity of the situation, the consequences of his words? The state attorney's office made a controversial decision to try Cristian as an adult. He was charged with first-degree murder, facing the possibility of life in prison. The case sparked a heated debate. Was this justice, or was it a further failure of a system that should have protected Cristian long ago? Was Cristian truly capable of understanding the consequences of his actions? Was he a cold-blooded killer, as some argued, or was he another victim of a system that had failed him at every turn? To understand the complexities of Cristian Fernandez's case, we need to delve into the mind of a child, a mind still developing, still grappling with the world around it. Dr. Stephen Herman, a renowned forensic psychologist specializing in childhood trauma, explains that a 12-year-old's brain is far from fully formed. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational decision-making and impulse control, is still under development. This means that children are more likely to react emotionally rather than logically, especially in stressful situations. Furthermore, Cristian's history of trauma and abuse likely exacerbated these developmental vulnerabilities. Dr. William Burnett, a prominent psychiatrist with expertise in child abuse cases, explains that exposure to violence can disrupt normal brain development, leading to increased aggression, difficulty processing emotions, and a heightened fight or flight response. This raises a critical question: where were the safety nets? Where were the systems designed to protect children like Cristian? Michelle Green, a seasoned child welfare advocate with decades of experience in the field, argues that the system failed Cristian and his family on multiple levels. Despite reports of behavioral issues and potential abuse, there appears to have been a lack of adequate intervention. Was it a lack of resources? A lack of training? Or a simple failure to recognize the severity of the situation? Whatever the reasons, the consequences were devastating. The decision to try Cristian as an adult sparked outrage among many child advocates and legal experts. Professor Melissa Hamilton, a respected legal scholar specializing in juvenile justice at the University of Surrey, argues that transferring a 12-year-old to adult court ignores the fundamental principles of child development and rehabilitation. Studies show that children tried as adults are more likely to re-offend, perpetuating a cycle of crime rather than breaking it. Furthermore, the harsh environment of adult prisons can be particularly damaging to young people, hindering their chances of rehabilitation and successful reintegration into society. The question remains, was justice served in Cristian's case? Or did the system, once again, fail a vulnerable child, this time with potentially lifelong consequences? I know this was a heavy one, but these stories need to be told. If you're feeling it, give this video a thumbs up and share it to spread awareness. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join our true crime community. For those of you who've been here a while, you know I appreciate you. Thanks for sticking around. After years of legal battles and public outcry, Cristian Fernandez accepted a plea deal in 2013. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter and aggravated battery. He was sentenced to remain in the juvenile justice system until his 19th birthday, with a further 8 years of probation. While this avoided the harshest possible punishment, it still meant years of confinement and a long road to rehabilitation. While in juvenile detention, Cristian received therapy, education, and vocational training. The goal was to address the underlying trauma and provide him with the tools to build a better future. But the question remains, can a system that failed him for so long now truly help him heal and reintegrate into society? Biannela Susana also faced legal consequences. She pleaded guilty to aggravated manslaughter for her role in David's death, stemming from her negligence in leaving the children unsupervised. She served time in prison and has since been released. While she continues to grieve the loss of her youngest son, she also carries the heavy burden of responsibility for the events that transpired. Her story serves as a stark reminder of the devastating impact of generational trauma and the urgent need for support systems for struggling families. And what of David, the innocent victim in this tragic story? His life, cut short so brutally, leaves a void that can never be filled. His legacy serves as a powerful reminder of the devastating consequences of violence and neglect, and the urgent need to protect our most vulnerable children. The story of Cristian Fernandez is a complex and heartbreaking one. It's a story of individual choices, systemic failures, and the devastating consequences of violence and neglect. But it's also a story that calls us to action. We cannot stand idly by while children suffer. We must work to prevent child abuse, strengthen our support systems for families, and reform our juvenile justice system to focus on rehabilitation rather than punishment. There are resources available, organizations dedicated to protecting children and supporting families. Please, take a moment to learn more, to get involved, to make a difference in the life of a child. The tragedy of David Gallariago's death and the complex journey of Cristian Fernandez highlight the urgent need for change. We must break the cycle of violence, address the root causes of abuse, and ensure that every child has the opportunity to grow up in a safe and loving environment. Let us remember David not just as a victim, but as a symbol of the innocence we must strive to protect. Let us learn from Cristian's story, recognizing the complex factors that can lead a child down a troubled path. And let us commit ourselves to building a better future for all children, a future free from violence, neglect, and the devastating consequences of a system that fails to protect its most vulnerable members. Thank you for joining us on this difficult but important journey. We hope this documentary has sparked your compassion, ignited your sense of justice, and inspired you to take action. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe to our channel for more content that explores critical issues and seeks to make a positive impact on the world. Together, we can make a difference.